So there is another piece of bad news for America, for its rogue regime led by Joe Biden and his supporters like Anthony Blinken. And what is that embarrassing news? The news is that Yemen's militia Ansarullah, who are also known as Houthis, have heaped more embarrassment on the US military because they have now claimed and they have presented the evidence that they have destroyed another American drone, US MQ-9. US MQ-9 is very, very special drone. This drone can fly at the altitude of 15,000 meters. We are talking about 15 kilometers in the air, in the sky. So the Houthis have now claimed to destroy this particular drone. How do we know that? Houthi spokesperson Yahya Sari, he has released a pre-recorded video claiming that the MQ-9 Reaper was shot down by air defenses over Marib as it was carrying out hostile activities. Now, adding insult to injury to the US, the so-called military superpower in the world, the Houthis have captured the drone intact. So they've shot it down, but captured the drone intact. What this means is that Houthis can now actually look into its machine and gain more military understanding of how it functions, etc. So a pretty devastating news strategically for America and its military. The rogue regimes of the US, the UK, and the Western allies had misled their population when they launched military strikes on Yemen, claiming to degrade the military capabilities of Houthis.
I'd like to update the House on the action that we took on Thursday night against Houthi military targets in Yemen. Since the 19th of November, Iran-backed Houthis have launched over 25 illegal and unacceptable attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. And on the 9th of January, they mounted a direct attack against British and American warships. They fired on our ships and our sailors. It was the biggest attack on the Royal Navy for decades. And so we acted. We did so in self-defense, consistent with the UN Charter, and to uphold freedom of navigation, as Britain has always done. Alongside the United States, with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, we ordered the RAF to strike 2 Houthi military facilities in Yemen. I want to be clear that these were limited strikes. They were carefully targeted at launch sites for drones and ballistic missiles to degrade the Houthis' capacity to make further attacks on international shipping.
In January, war criminal Blinken was issuing fake threats by warning Houthis of reprisals, consequences.
You're right, a number of actions being taken by the Houthis, by other Iranian proxies in Iraq, in Syria, that threaten stability and threaten the potential for conflict. And we're determined, again, that we not see escalation, that we don't have the conflict spread, and we've made that very clear. But of course, if our personnel, if our forces are threatened or attacked, we'll take appropriate steps. We'll respond. We'll protect them. We've demonstrated that in the recent past, and we will again if we have to. We talked already about the threat that the Houthis are posing. That's a threat not to us, just to us or to Israel. It's a threat to the entire international community because they've been attacking shipping through the Red Sea that's vital to providing, it provides about 15% of global commerce every day. These attacks have had very, very negative effects for countries around the world in terms of forcing ships to route around the Red Sea, take longer routes, more expensive, more time, insurance rates goes up, prices for food, for medicine, for energy, for whatever's being shipped are going up. And more broadly, it's a threat to the principle of freedom of navigation that every country has a stake in. That's why more than 40 countries joined us in condemning the Houthi actions. That's why other countries have joined us in making clear that if this continues, there are going to be consequences.
But by July, he too had realized that dealing with Houthis wasn't going to be an easy task after all. So he was being forced to make a conciliatory statement on Houthis by finally admitting that their action in the Red Sea was directly linked to the Israeli genocide in Gaza.
But it also underscores why a ceasefire in Gaza is so critical. Hezbollah, of course, has tied what it's doing to the situation in Gaza and has said that if there's a ceasefire in Gaza, it will stop firing into Israel. Now, it shouldn't be firing to begin with. It's wrong in and of itself, but it's also a reality. So it only underscores why getting that ceasefire could also be critical to further enabling the diplomacy to try to create conditions in which the diplomacy can really resolve this problem, get people back to their homes in Israel, in southern Lebanon, and have something that's more enduring in terms of keeping things calm. By the way, Red Sea, the Houthis, same thing. Iranian-aligned militia groups. So much of this is tied to Gaza. And I think it underscores why it's clearly in the strategic interests of Israel as well to effectively bring this to a close.
For a country like America to suffer such humiliation at the hands of a tiny group of fighters from a war-ravaged country is extremely serious. And mind you, this is the 8th American drone that Houthis have shot down in the last 10 or 11 months since the Gaza conflict started. This comes just days after America and its Western allies were seen helpless, utterly helpless, after a British ship carrying 1 million barrels of crude oil was destroyed by Houthis. They said that oil was on its way to Greece, but there were reports that it was actually on its way to Israel. All Blinken and Pentagon could do on that occasion was to invoke environmental disaster to portray Houthis as bad actors in the region.
These reckless attacks of terrorism by the Houthis continue to destabilize regional and global commerce while threatening the lives of innocent civilian mariners as well as maritime ecosystems. Currently, private companies are examining salvage options in the southern Red Sea for the disabled motor vessel Delta Saunion, which is still on fire and threatens the possibility of a major environmental disaster. The U.S. will continue to work with international partners and allies to protect maritime commerce and mitigate potential impacts to the environment despite the irresponsible and careless actions of the Iranian-backed Houthis.
This is not the only damaging development for America and its war criminal actors such as Blinken and Netanyahu. Remember how often I repeatedly told you from this platform that a huge majority of those killed in 7th of October attacks were the victims of Israeli brutalities. Israeli warplanes had killed most of their own people as part of the Hannibal Directive. For 11 months, Israelis and Americans tried to stop mainstream media outlets in their countries from reporting this. But this is now changing. This is what Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the Australian equivalent of the BBC, has reported. Its headline reads, Israeli forces accused of killing their own citizens under the Hannibal Directive during October 7th chaos. This was bound to happen, as you can hide the truth only for a limited period of time. Some of you said that I was being naive to keep exposing Israelis for their lies on 7th of October attacks. But frankly speaking, this didn't bother me, because I have always believed that the truth is still the truth, even if no one believes it. And a lie is still a lie, even if everyone believes it. It's this principle that drives me to keep reporting and commenting on the Israeli genocidal campaign sponsored by the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia every single day, tirelessly. It's not easy to keep watching hours of video footages every day, video footages of those helpless, unarmed Palestinian men, women, children, and babies being slaughtered live on your mobile devices, and then try and not lose your sanity to report on them. It's not easy. But that's what I have chosen it for myself as an upright journalist. As I speak, Israeli terrorists have once again targeted a school, killing scores of people, mainly children and babies, who were taking shelter there. That's Israeli barbarism for you. A genocidal ideology that finds ironclad sponsorship from the US, the UK, the EU, Canada, and Australia, among others. And the political class of these countries would have us believe that they have been civilized. They care about human rights, freedom of speech. No, they don't. That's it for me. Now, before I end, an appeal to all of you to consider supporting this platform. Details are in description and in pinned comment. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.